right now we are joined once again by Angela Persicke, excuse me, and she is a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst. We were talking about non-compliance before, which happens. It's going to happen. But what we want is compliance.
Exactly.
And so how do we go about getting compliance? Give us some tips that we can use today to get compliance.
Great. Well, there are a few different methods that have been researched with typical developing children and children with autism and other learning disabilities, ADHD, all across the board. So this is something that can be used no matter what the diagnosis.
Cool. We like that.
And we look at it based on antecedent interventions, so what is going on before the behavior, modifying those, as well as consequence-based interventions, so what is happening afterwards.
Okay.
So a few things that often occur that have been researched, giving rationales for why the child should comply. And this goes back to you should comply because it makes mommy feel good.
Right.
So giving a rationale for complying, that's an antecedent intervention.
Okay.
It doesn't really work.
Okay.
So
good to know. So yakking at them and saying, you need to be a good boy, you need to be a good girl, you need to, do this, not effective.
Not really effective at all. But specifying the conditions where the child will get reinforcement or not. So if you do this, if you take out the trash, you'll get ice cream.
Okay.
That does work. That is effective.
Okay, so giving them an if-then kind of a situation, letting them know you're going to get reinforcement for doing the thing that I want you to do.
Exactly.
I think that's hard for parents sometimes because they think, I don't want to raise a child who has to get rewarded for everything. Well, but you want a compliant child, and we don't have to keep that up forever, right?
No. What happens over time is that, social praise, even like, good job, thank you so much for doing that, oh, that made me feel so great, that becomes a conditioned reinforcer.
Right.
So once that is paired, multiple times with something like ice cream, a great toy, an activity, it becomes a conditioned reinforcer and works just as well as these primary reinforcers like ice cream.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see with my own child because, he had a great deal of intensive ABA in our home, and we have a great deal of compliance, not all the time now, but there are some times when I'll ask him to do something where my child will turn to me and say, what can I get for that, right? He literally will ask me that question, and I say to him, my undying love forever. And he will say to me, I already have that. And I say, yes, but it adds up. And every once in a while, like once a week or something, I'll take him as a surprise and do something, and he'll say, why are we doing this? And I say, because you've been such a good boy, so that I make sure that I do reinforce it, but just in a lump sum, and he'll say, well, what did I do sometimes? And I'll say, well, remember when you did this, and remember, so he gets reinforcement, but it's not on a specific schedule anymore, but that took a lot of years. So,
yeah, exactly. Another intervention, antecedent-based intervention, is something we refer to often as behavioral momentum, and that is giving demands that are high probability demands that the child will most likely comply with before you give the demand that the child doesn't comply with. So it's you're building momentum so that the child is engaging in compliance before you get to the actual demand you want to see.
So are we asking them to do easier things before we ask them the hard thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
So a number of high probability, easier targets than a harder target.
Okay.
So that works a good amount of time. It works. It's not always consistently the best the best option because especially with highly vocal children, because they'll see the point where you get to the target response, especially if you've been asking the child to do this all along. brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. And then you're like, okay, wash your hands, put your shirt on, all this stuff. Now brush your teeth. And the child will discriminate, like, oh, that's the one I don't want to do.
Right.
So,
but I'm just thinking in terms of, we saw on the A Word with Jack Riley that he was out of sorts one day and she was asking him to do something, the therapist, and he was being non-compliant. And instead of pushing that issue right then, she backtracked to things that were easier and said, touch the bunny, and he touched the bunny, and then she said, pick, give me the red car or whatever, things that he wanted to do and that were easier, and so that he got himself calmed and centered, and she reinforced him for those things that he did that were easier, so that then when she said to him, okay, come here and sit down, he did, because he remembered, okay, it never goes bad if I do what you ask me to do.
Exactly. And this works a lot better in situations like that. So, when you're doing skill acquisition or just teaching labeling or anything like that, you can go back to these easier targets or body parts, touch your head, touch your nose, touch your eyes.
We did a lot of touch your nose.
Exactly. And then touch the pen, something like that. That's a lower probability response. So,
and you call that behavior momentum?
Yeah.
I've never heard that term before. Okay, great, good to know.
Yeah, behavioral momentum, and so it's kind of like building the momentum so that the child will engage in the response.
Cool. Okay.
So that is effective sometimes for vocal responding, though. If you're trying to get a child to say something and they just won't say it, that might not work, because of course, if you're going to go back to easier targets that have vocal responses and the child's already not saying anything, probably won't say anything.
Okay, so we got to use a measure of common sense here.
Exactly.
Pick things in different categories from, so that you're not bumping up against the same issue when they're being non-compliant.
Exactly.
Okay.
One other antecedent-based intervention that I want to mention is using non-contingent reinforcement. Okay. So giving reinforcement, some form of another, on a non-contingent schedule. So just, every once in a while saying, oh, good job doing this, oh, here's this. And it's almost like how we build rapport. It's like making the child like you, I guess you can say. And this works fairly well where if you're consistently giving the child reinforcement that's not contingent on any specific behaviors, but is on like a fixed schedule. So every minute you're saying good job or great sitting, anything like that, like just giving some kind of reinforcement that doesn't have to do with the target behavior. This often increases compliance in general.
I think what else is good about it when we're doing non-contingent, what you're talking about, and praising them on a regular basis, like literally saying every minute I'm going to praise them, is that when our child is not being compliant, we get into a mode where everything is horrible. We just do. We get emotional about it, don't we? And we go, oh, my kid today, we're in that mode. But if we're focused on praising them and finding excuses to praise them, it shifts us. And I do think that shifts them as well.
Exactly.
It's that old thing of if somebody asks you to look at everything blue in the room and you see all kinds of blue things, and then they say, okay, what was green in the room? And you go, I don't know. I was looking at the blue things. If all we're seeing is the non-compliance, we won't see all the times that they are being compliant and all the other good things that are going on. I think it does something for us that's really beneficial. Gets us out of the gutter. And
out of this constantly giving demands.
Yes, the yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So those are a lot of, this is what research focuses on for what is happening before the behavior occurs.
Okay.
And like I said, some of them aren't as effective as others. Giving rationales is not very effective, and then the other ones can be effective. and then we'll move into consequence-based.
Okay, maybe we should take a break.
Yes.
And come back and talk about consequence. But in terms of the antecedent ones, we're looking at not just naggy, doesn't work, but we are looking at building momentum, having them do things that are easier, and finding a schedule that we're praising them on a regular basis for things that don't have to do with the behavior.
Yep.
Really, really effective. Okay, great. That is for antecedent for compliance.
Yes.
All right.